time. So, okay. Hi. Welcome to my talk about web application development in Clojure. I've been developing web applications for many years now, and mostly in Java EE. So when I started learning functional programming, first in Clojure, then in Scala and F#, I was amazed how simple it is to create an application, web application in those languages. I always thought that to start developing web applications is to create a bunch of classes, and then out of those classes create something useful. So you need to create something at the very beginning, and then build your web application. In Clojure, it was different. So I thought I'd share some knowledge about it, my experiences about it, and then gather some experiences from you, some questions, and then improve my knowledge and yours in the meantime. Okay, so I'm Jacek Laskowski, and I'm here to answer your questions how to develop web applications in Clojure. So, what is this? What is this? It's a map. Yeah, it's a basic data structure. So it's a map. Everybody knows what map is or what map provides. So it's just a map. Map is a structure that maps keys to values. Others might say it's just a sequence of pairs of key values. So it depends on your knowledge. You may see map differently, but map is a basic data structure. So, okie doke. So this is a map data structure in Clojure. That's the way to initialize a map in Clojure. And I use special syntax for keys. They are called keywords because they are so simple to use. You just give it any name, prepend it with colon, and that's it. That's a keyword. And it's stable, it's immutable, it's fast, so it's a good candidate for keys. So this is a key, this is a value. Okay, that was good. So, what's this? This is a definition of M, which is a map with 3 pairs of key and a value. So we've got name with my name, conference with the conference name, and title of this presentation, which is Clojure in short. So from now on, symbol M will point at data structure, which is a map. You understand it, do you? Okay, that's basic. That's gonna be till the very end of this presentation. Okay, so what's map? Map maps keys to values. Maps are also functions of their keys. Meaning, whenever I use a map, it's just a function. Think of it. A map is a function. So if it's a function, you can call this function with some arguments. What arguments could it be? Well, keywords. Usually keywords. Because they are so easy to create, so you use keywords as a way to map your information, so you can convey the idea or the information back and forth using maps. So, that was easy. Any questions? No? Sorry?
Not so far.
Not so far. So far, so good. Good. There are some functions you can use, assoc and disassoc, that will manipulate this map, or not only this, but any map in Clojure. But be careful, we do not modify the map we are applying these functions to, meaning we create another map. So whenever you use assoc or disassoc, you manipulate a map, but effectively you create another map. So you end up with 2 maps, or 3 maps, depending on how many maps or how many calls of assoc and disassoc you got. Okay, That was simple. Good. What is this? That's okay. So we've got this def. This is a map, and to access information out of this map, you use keywords or keys of this map. So name is a keyword. So keyword applied to a map is a function that will return a value. Simple? Simple. And map is also a function. So given a keyword or a key that's inside this map, you will get a value as well. Okay, and there are assoc and disassoc I mentioned. Easy? Good. Okay, what about this? This is a functional request. That's how I call it. So, look at this. Can you understand what information I'm passing from a client to a server or vice versa? So let's call it a request, and I call it functional because that's what I'm going to use in Clojure to handle web requests, HTTP requests. So, can you decipher this information and tell me what request I've been accessing to get this map? So my question is, what URL I typed in a browser to get this map? What about scheme? Or what about, am I accessing HTTP or HTTPS?
HTTP.
How did you know it? How do you know it? It's easy, huh? It's here. It's here. Okay, so HTTP, right. Then localhost, and URI is slash, and that give us 80, 90. This is the port of the server. That's the URL. That's simple. No special objects, no special, anything that I presented already is known to you. And that's Clojure, or that's supposed to be Clojure. Okay, functional response. Response is same, almost. Different information, different keys and different values, but it's still a map. So, in Clojure, processing requests and giving responses is to process maps. So whenever you see a map, you will need to figure out what keys provide what information, but in effect, you don't have to create an object or objects to access information that will appear as this web page. So look at this. This basic data structure gives this web page. Isn't it simple? Isn't it too simple? Yeah, that's what Clojure provides you as far as web application development goes. So it gives you map manipulation frameworks or libraries that ends up to generate such web pages. Questions?
Look like a production table.
Looks like what?
Production.
Production? What do you mean?
It's too simple.
It's too... Wow! Have you heard this? It's too simple. Okay, so you said too simple. Did you work with a language that complicate this to a land that you couldn't understand what's going on?
Simply as Java, it's complicated.
Yes. Yeah. That's exactly my thought when I saw it. I saw this and I saw this and I said, well, it's just a different representation of this map, right? It's just a different view. But it's still the same data. And I said, is this all about programming or developing web applications in Clojure? And people said, yes. What else would you expect? Well, I would need some kind of a framework that would help me to create some bunch of classes, and I would need to spend some couple of hours to understand this framework before I get even started with this framework and build my very first page. But that was all. And I said, well, I'm gonna present it to others because people might not know it. Did you know it? You didn't? Yeah. Okay. So let's start with the tooling that will help you creating this simple web pages. Simple meaning the process of developing web applications is simple, but it doesn't mean or it doesn't imply that your applications have to be simple. No, that's not the case. So leiningen. What's leiningen? Have you heard about leiningen?
Yeah.
Oh, you heard. So what is this? Build tool or project management tool.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Same. Different explanations, same thing. Yeah. Thank you. So leiningen automates Clojure projects with Clojure. So it's like a Gradle. It's like what else? In Scala we've got SBT. What else can I use for as an example of using a tool that's written in this language, and the configuration is written in this language I'm using in a project. So what else? SBT in Scala, Gradle. Oh, rake in Ruby. What else? Okay, there are a few more. So leiningen is the tool to automate Clojure projects, and it's written in Clojure, and you use Clojure to configure your project. Okay, whenever you use leiningen, and when you are in trouble, when you've got some questions, you may use lein help to get started with the tool. So lein help will provide you all the gory details of using lein to be effective. Okay, and leiningen.org is the web page of this project, so you can have a look at this and learn it. So what's the project setup for our presentation? So lein new plus name of your project gives you a project structure. So it's different from SBT, right? SBT doesn't provide SBT new. You need to, install additional tools to have something like lein new, right? Or Maven archetype create. Is it correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. So lein new creates a project with some foundational, I'd say, some basic files, so you can get started. You can run this project out of, once you finish this lein new, and that's it. Okay, so in our case, when I created this JEEConf Clojure web app, I just cd to this project, and I configure it in project CLJ. Project CLJ is a Clojure script written in Clojure, obviously, that configures the project you are working with. It's pretty simple, so you will see it in a moment. Okay, and more will come soon, because now I'm gonna show you how it is to work with leiningen. So leiningen is that simple. So you see it? No, you don't. Okay. So let me switch to this display. Okay. Good. So let's go up. Let's go to my sandbox and let's create lein new and Kiev project. So when you execute this command, lein new Kiev project, you effectively create a project. So let's go inside and open it. Oh, no, that's not something I meant to do. So I'm gonna use this again. Okay, you see it? Oh, it's not that good, but believe me, there's a project structure you can just you can use to develop your project. So let's stick with this explanation, although you don't see much. So there is this test src directory where you can put your tests, your sources, project CLJ, which is the configuration file for your project, doc and readme, obviously. So you can put your or publish your project on GitHub and be happy with what you've achieved so far. So that's all you need to know for the moment. Okay, so you can do a lot, but for the moment it's not needed. Okay. So project setup, lay new, cd to this project, configure project in project CLJ, which is written in Clojure. I assume you understand Clojure. It's fine. Ring. That's the library we are going to use for a couple of hours, minutes, perhaps hours, if you stick to this concept of developing applications in Clojure with Ring. So what's a Ring? Ring is a library. It's not a framework. It's a library. You can install it as any other Clojure libraries or library, and it's a library for web application development. That's it. It lets you. It sounds bizarre because there are plenty of web application development, web application libraries, but this library is a foundation for other libraries in Clojure because that's Ring to transform your requests into maps, and then your maps to responses. So effectively, whenever you do something with Ring or in Clojure, as far as web application development goes, you will use Ring to have an input as a map or a map as an input, and you will return map as an output. So Ring will transform it to a page. Given some conventions. So Ring is a HTTP abstraction. So it abstracts requests and responses and gives you a pleasant way to work with maps, because maps are something you need to create or to manipulate requests and responses. Good. This is the page of Ring. So if you need more, you may find more information on this website. Okay, so Clojure is a repo of Clojure libraries. So whenever you see or look for a library, you just use this clojures.org, and you can put a name of your library you need, and there will be a help or helpful information how you can use this library in leiningen. You know leiningen already, or Maven. Okay, since we are using leiningen, we use this to declare dependency to Ring or on Ring in our project. So we'll use it. So this is what we are going to use in our project CLJ. It was published just 5 days ago, so we are on bleeding edge of Ring development. Okay, so this is the project CLJ. Project CLJ, you may see the very first time. So it's pretty simple, I believe. So let me ask you a question. Do you understand this? Do you understand this configuration file? If not, ask a question. Ask questions, so I can explain it. So that's simple. It's just a list with some information inside. And the section we are mostly interested in is dependencies. So I didn't change this file. It's just the default file that was generated by laying new. I haven't changed it in any way. I just added Clojure 1.5.1, which is the latest version of Clojure. Plus, I added the dependency on Ring. So for now, we've got our project depends on Clojure and Ring. That's all. So we can see it here. So whenever let me. You don't see it. So let me put it here. Oh, it doesn't look good. Okay. So, hop. Okay. vi project CLJ. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, and you know, this is the very basic project CLJ. And now I could change it to include my dependencies. Since I've got this you know, done before I started this presentation, I'm not going to do it. So, but just, okay. Okie doke. So let's move on. Okay, so laying REPL is what you may, yeah.
Where does it look for the dependency?
Good question. So, is there anyone who could answer this question? Where are these dependencies stored or available? How do you know this? Yes, so they are in Maven repos. So leiningen is more like a Maven, but it's written in Clojure, and you configure your projects in Clojure instead of XML. But the concept of transitive dependencies is the same in Clojure, in leiningen, in Maven, and perhaps in other build tools. So Maven 1, repo 1, Maven org, and other repos are, and Clojures, I think, are the main default repositories for jars, for dependencies. So you start laying the REPL, and you can play with your project. So we do it. So it's not as easy as I thought it could be, but let me try. So let's mirror. Okie doke. So let's, oh, it doesn't look good, right? Ah, it's better now, okay. Okay, so what I need to do is to change the version of this. Okay, so I change it. That was easy. Now I'm gonna use my how do I call it? You don't see it? No, you don't. So I change it to include okay. So ring. What was the dependency? It was ring, and the ring 1.2 and beta 3. Okay, that's good. That's all I need. Remember? That's all I need, more or less. So I save it, and I do laying REPL. What it will do, it will download the dependencies and let you play with them as if they were locally installed on your machine, because in effect they will. And you get this REPL environment where you can play with those libraries. So whenever you see this REPL, you can do something like +111, okay, it's free, it's obvious. Def m to define a map, so name Jacek, and okay, and last name Laskowski, and that's it. Okay, I've got m, which is a map, and I can access name of this map, just that easy. That was easy, right? Okay, so let's see how it will work with ring. Ring is quite easy too, because now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use ring adapter Jetty, which gives me an access to Jetty server, but in a functional way, meaning I can use it as a function. So ring adapter Jetty gives me something which is called a run Jetty. It's a function that accepts this. Run Jetty is a function that's part of this namespace that accepts my handler, we'll get to it, and accepts some options that will let you start Jetty server. Okay, so I press enter, and guess what will happen? What will happen?
Jetty will be run.
Sorry?
Jetty will be run.
No. Why? Because my handler is not defined. So what's the my handler? Ring is an abstraction above HTTP layer. So whenever we play with ring, we expect an input as an input parameter a map, and we give a response, in the form of a map. So our my handler should be a function that accepts a map and returns a map. So let's define a function called my handler that accepts a map request and returns a map. But before we do it, I print on processing request or request processing. And then I just return what I got as a response. As a response. Okay, my handler. Let's start with this again. So run jetty, my handler, and then start this server with my handler, with my function on port 8090. Good, done. I started jetty server with my handler attached to, to the, I would say, request processing stack. So let's see, what can I do? Okay, so let's start with this simple request. You see, the page is empty. Why is it empty? Because this response is malformed. It's not in a shape ring would expect it. So a map is not enough. A map with some keys would be. But since we didn't provide enough information in the map, we just intercept a map that was a request and we gave it back. So, but look at this. You can't see it here, but I'm pretty sure you can see it here. So there is a processing request. So we intercepted request response, and we can see that we output the output message gives you a clue that we are in the stack. Good. Look at this. Now I'm gonna change this handler to be like this. So whenever I get this request, I'm gonna define URI of this request and say, okay, I've got this URI, and then I'm gonna return in a map, okay, and hello, okay. So let me do this URI, just this. Okay. Up. That's it. Can you understand it? Do you understand it? Yep. What does this function do? What does this handler do? Sorry?
Returns URI as the body.
Yeah, as the body. Okay, that's simple. So without restarting the server, without touching anything else, but redefining the function, I'm gonna execute this page again. Refresh the page. So Ctrl F. You see? You see it here? Well, you might not if you look here, but it is here. So okay. So now it's here. Let's change this URI to JEEConf or JEEConf. You see? I've got this. Let's do this. You see? That was very easy. That was very pleasant. Are there any questions? No? Okay, you expect more. Okay, good, of course. Yeah, I bet. Okay, so this is the project CLJ, and let me unmute the display so I can it easy. So later app will use ring adapter jetty, run handler, but since we didn't define handler, we had to at some point because run jetty gave us error. And doc run jetty is the way to find out more about run jetty, about this function that eventually starts a server and gives you a nice response. So functional response is like this: status 200 headers. If you need more headers, then if you need to define headers and body. It was that simple. Okay, this is more complicated stuff. It's all you need to type in to your app. So use jetty, that's fine. Define my handler, processing request 200, and that's it. You saw it. So that was not that complicated. Okay, so hello world, and we can change this handler on the fly without restarting the server. Clojure will handle it. Okay, let's move on. There are some utils in Ring that will ease your work with responses, requests and responses. One of them is response. So instead of creating a map, you just say, okay, I'm going to use response with a string, and it will give me a map with a response that contains the string I gave as an input parameter to response. That's very easy. So look at this. So what does this handler do? Yeah, it does exactly what we did with our own handler before. Okay, that was easy. So URI request responds differently to requests, right? And then think about it. Whenever you access a URI, you will have to decide what page you need to render, right? So you will have to eventually create a routing framework or routing library for Ring. That's Compojure. Compojure is another library built atop Ring, or that aims at simplifying working with Ring. So instead of being at Ring level, you declare dependency on Compojure, and you create web applications, at higher level. So Compojure is a Clojure library for web routing. That's exactly what we aimed for. Okay, it's just a DSL to generate Ring handlers or Ring handler functions. We know what handlers are in Ring. They are functions that accept map and return map, right? And they are especially treated by Ring to generate pages. Good. So Compojure.org is the place to learn more about Compojure. Clojures is the place to find what we need to put in leiningen to play with Compojure. So we add Compojure to project CLJ, and we are done with declaring dependency on Compojure. Okay, so our project CLJ looks like this. So we've got Clojure as before, Ring, and now we've got Compojure. So with Compojure, we can create more useful web pages, or we can react to different URIs based on them. Okay, so project setup, linear app again, and we can use Ring adapter jetty to start jetty server. Okay, run jetty as previously. We need to obviously define handler, but we do it in a moment. Use Compojure core to use def rows and get, post, and other verbs you know from HTTP. Questions? Yes.
Does Compojure provide something like template engine or something like that?
No. We'll get to it soon. How much time do we have? 15 minutes. Good. So whenever you use Ring, or whenever you wanna create a web application in Clojure, you will end up probably in one way or the other with Ring-based library. One of them is Compojure. Okay, so with Compojure, we can do something like this. So we define our use, or we declare using Compojure core. We require some functions, and we create diff roads or roads called app. It's a macro, and with gets. And whenever we access anything else but the slash, we end up with not found page. So it's that simple. Questions? Okay, so when we access 8090, we get hello world, while with JEEConf, we get page not found. It's our router. Compojure is a library to route your requests. Okay, good. There are some utils. You know, Compojure root provides files not found resources, so you can create files and don't worry about, you know, how to create pages that are meaningful to you, to your web developer. And there are some, you know, API and site that provides functionality like keeping sessions, cookies, and all the stuff you don't want to bother with when creating a web page or web application in Clojure. Okay, so what does this app do? Actually, the question should have been way before, but just to, you know, keep it in mind. What does it do?
And the certain routes to certain output.
Yes. So whenever we access slash, we end up with a web page that contains hello world, while other requests will end up with page not found with this nice looking message. Okay. So generates HTML pages based upon URIs, right? You know where I'm heading? To answer our colleague's question. So what about templating? Is there a library for HTML templating? Or we are stuck with generating HTML out of Clojure functions? Yes. The answer is yes, we've got Enlive. Enlive is for me, the web templating library for Clojure. So Clojure library, again, it's a library like any other libraries you might be using in Clojure for web templating. Templates are HTML files plus some dev template forms in Clojure files, in Clojure scripts. So there is this template, and some dynamically modified parameters are provided by dev template. So dev template is a form that accepts HTML file and, you know, fills in all the places where we need to create a runtime. And this is the page for Enlive. It's on GitHub. Okay, Clojures again. So you now know where to find libraries for Clojure. And Enlive 111 is what we are going to use because it's quite fresh. This is the project CLJ. So now we've got Clojure, Ring, Compojure, and Enlive. Enlive 111. Nothing else has been changed but those dependencies. And when you add all these, you may create pages like this. Is this a web application? Yes, obviously, because I use web browser to access this web application, right? So this is the project. This is my project, my own project on GitHub with all the sources. with all the documentation I dared to write about this project. It's even deployed on Heroku app, so people can see this page, but do not access it right now because it's down. I don't know why. I haven't fixed it for a moment, but I tried it today and I saw that it's down. So if you try this others right now, it might not work for you properly. I'll fix it soon, but if you need to see how I created, how I developed this web application, you can git clone this project and see yourself how it was designed. Questions? What about sessions? It's handled by Compojure. Okay, that's a question I should have answered. Okay, so let's have a look at. Okay, we done. Okay. Okay, so the question was, how does a template look like? It's just an HTML page. So let's go to a library in Clojure and sample line it. Okay, this is the project. Okay, so let me put it. Okay. So you need to see a page. Okay, there's a page. And have a look at this. Let me hide. How can I do this? Okay, I don't know. Okay, let me do this like this. Okay. So, can you understand? Well, not here, but probably here, over there. Can you understand what's going on with this def template function? Well, yes. As in other languages like Java, Scala, perhaps other languages. Yeah, let's see. So def template defines a var called index for user, right? And defines where there is a template, index HTML. Sorry for not displaying it properly here. So public index HTML is the template for this template. And as you may have guessed, it does. Okay. There are keys and there are other functions that create something that this template requires. So let's have a look at public index HTML to see what's inside this template. So resources, public, index, HTML. What else? What else could you expect? It's just an HTML file. And nothing else. Sorry. Nothing else. Just HTML with all the bunch of HTMLs for Twitter's template. What's it called? The bootstrap, and that's it. Nothing that would show it's somehow related to Clojure. Nothing. Yes, that's the answer. Whenever I access HTML file, I would change. Well, that was my invention, because Enlive could do this differently by classes, by IDs. But I created this semi-templating way of expressing my intent. So I'm using double curly braces to show this is a dynamically created or filled in place for runtime data. That's all. So it's, and why I'm so excited about it. Now I can hand it over, the templates over to web developer and say, okay, create the pages for me so I can concentrate on the business logic. And that's how I can achieve it with Clojure. I can use Ring, Compojure, and what else? Enlive. Thank you. And be done with the task. I can say, okay, I'm good at Clojure, or developing applications in Clojure. You are good at HTML. So let's split the work and create a web page faster, or web application faster. Yes.
Could you leave some bug in the application and let's see what's the place it works? And it's very interesting.
What do you mean?
For example, we have a bug in our application, and in a Ruby application or in Groove application,
Yes.
the application we have nicely
Okay, so then,
traces.
so
And I know that the traces in Clojure is a little bit nightmare for developer.
yeah, that was a nightmare, but with Compojure, it's pretty useful.
Can you talk?
No, I can't, because I would have to change the source code to include my Compojure library to generate, nicely looking pages with stack traces.
For example, we forgot about one collaborators or something with title,
Yeah,
marker, and what's happened?
nothing.
Nothing?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
What would you expect? It's just a string.
Yeah.
So HTML file is just a string.
Mhm.
So if Enlive can't or couldn't find the place it needs, it just skips the processing of this, macro or this rule or this rule. That's it. Yeah, that's described.
Because rejected socket container, you will see the same place in any case if you have rule exception.
Yes. So you see it's in Compojure, in Enlive, in Ring as well.
Do you have something like for each statement to show the several lines?
Yes, but we do it in Clojure. Because what you are doing is not HTML templating. It's more here. There was a very good question, but I'm not prepared to show some slides. So wait a moment. So look at this. I've got here book list, but it's just one book. It's just a template. So what I'm doing, Enlive provides me a way to duplicate this section and create more sections, but it's done in Clojure. So I'm using def template. Exactly. That's exactly what web developer would provide me. Web developer would use their own or his or her own HTML design tools that would create, okay, this is a template. So now, whenever you need to display some more data than one, you just duplicate it. That's it.
You have table here, but it's single table data below, yes?
Yes. So Enlive will duplicate it.
In which
Wait.
in which case you won't use Clojure? What kind of
Oh, it's a very good question. And this is the question I'm not prepared to answer because I'm not full-blown Clojure developer. I'm not paid in my daily job for developing applications. So it's more like, I'm having fun with Clojure and I'm developing in Clojure. That's all. So I found it quite useful because I don't want to learn yet another web framework library or web framework to create a very simple web page. So for me it was useful, and I haven't found places where I couldn't use it. Persistence is a different story. I haven't discussed it because it's beyond these libraries. Yeah, everything is easy in Clojure. Security is easy too. Yeah, there is a library called Friend. Friend is written by Chad Semerick. He developed some other libraries, and one of them is Friend, that's based on Spring Security and other libraries, and it provides useful abstraction atop all those. Wait, what's your question?
Actually, I have two questions. The first one about kinds of handlers.
handlers. What's the question?
In Play framework for Scala, we have different kinds of handlers like JSON handler, comments,
Yes.
web,
Yes.
and so on.
Yes.
So
You can create same here because they are based on the same. So the question was.
The second question about what's the point of Compojure and all the stack written in Clojure, except the language itself. What's the difference between same frameworks in Scala, especially Ray?
The question was, what's the difference between Scala frameworks and Clojure? And did I use frameworks? No, never. I never used framework to explain these concepts I presented here. They are only libraries. What's the difference between library and framework? In case of framework, you need to use it from the very first day till the end of the life of the application. While in library, you can just replace it and change it to anything else. So in Clojure, the approach is to create a bunch of small utilities called libraries that you can mix and match to create your own, let's call it, frameworks. So there is no framework. Well, there are some attempts to create frameworks like Nor, or there was another, but they failed because people didn't find it useful because they could create more powerful frameworks using those smaller libraries. So, what was the first question?
About handlers, comment.
Okay, yes. You can create handlers based on a content type. It's handled by Compojure. So Compojure is the way to go to find different handlers for different responses. So if you wanna respond in JSON way, or in XML way, or SVG way, you use Compojure. Yeah, I would use Compojure to handle it. And there are some handlers, some middlewares to do it for you. So you don't have to worry about it. 0 minute.
How to deploy such application to Tomcat or JEEConf?
Yeah. So Ring provides a servlet. And there are some utilities. Ring is a plugin that will generate a web application based upon a servlet that generated based upon your project. Same for Play. Play uses netty under the hood, right? So whenever you need to deploy Scala web project developed in Play, same story applies to Clojure, Ring, and Compojure and Enlive stack. So you need to generate a servlet that you will deploy to as a var to your web container and be done with the task. There are tools for this, and they are simple to use. Jetty is just for demonstration purposes. It's not needed to develop applications. So I use it because there was no other way to show you the application using Clojure repo, and I haven't actually demonstrated so as much as I wish I had, but still. Run Jetty is just a function to execute Jetty and have this application def road from Compojure or a handler from Ring, easily deployed, and so you can play with this stack, playing with REPL. So you don't have to deploy it on full-blown web application container like Tomcat, Jetty, or whatever, because you can rely on Ring to do it for you. Any other questions? Nope? I do.
Who uses Clojure?
Who uses Clojure? Me. Who else is using Clojure? Is there anyone? One, two, two other guys. Why are you using Clojure? What are you using Clojure for?
It's not full-time job, it's for personal use.
Okay. Why did you pick Clojure?
It's a lot of fun.
Lots of fun. You see, lots of fun. So yeah, and I found it very amusing that people, whenever I ask people why do we bother about Clojure, they say because I bother about having fun, and it's like this. So people, it seems that people got bored with, you know, full-blown frameworks, you know, Java EE perhaps in some way, and they need something smaller, something easier to develop with and play with, so people have fun.
Do you know anyone who uses it for money?
For money?
I mean,
Well, me.
I mean, big companies.
I work for IBM, and I don't know if IBM uses Clojure for any, you know, big projects. But I know that Scala and Clojure are accepted languages for IBMers to play with. So if there are some projects based on Scala and Clojure, but I don't know, since I'm not working for research and development, I can't comment more. But there are companies that use this language, Clojure, as a vehicle to earn more money. Yeah, Clojure.org is the answer. I believe that's where you can find answers to your questions. Are there any other questions? No? Thank you for listening and